Welcome back to Beyond the Classroom, the podcast from Laramie County Community College's Outreach and Workforce Development team, where we explore how education meets opportunity right here in Wyoming. We're your hosts, Adam and James, and today we're diving into something that impacts every job seeker, student, and employer out there: soft skills.
So you probably heard the term before, but what exactly are soft skills, and why are they now considered just as important as technical knowledge, the technical know-how that we've been stressing for decades? In 2025, the job market isn't just looking at what you know, but it's looking at how you work with others, how you solve problems, how you adapt to change. In this episode, we'll break down the top soft skills employers are actively looking for and share how you can build them, spot them, and use them to stand out in the workplace. Let's get started. Start us off, what exactly are soft skills? In our first episode with you, you referred to them as essential skills.
Right.
So what are those?
Yes. Well, I think they should be referred to as essential skills because they are probably the most requested skills from employers when we talk to employers. So when we ask, what are you looking for in an employee? What employers tend to ask for before they ask for those technical skills is the essential skills, which would be things like, I want somebody who is able to show up on time. I want someone who is a self-starter, who takes initiative, who I'm able to trust to work independently, but who can also work as part of a team. I want someone who can follow instructions. I want someone who can meet a deadline. I want someone who has attention to detail, and those kinds of things. So those aren't things that we necessarily think of as technical skills, but they're really, really important to someone's success in a career. And the funny thing is, it doesn't really matter what job you go into. Every single job out there is going to require some sort of skill set that would encompass these essential skills that we're talking about.
Tonya, you gave us a good list of essential skills, but what do you think employers are looking for most as far as soft skills go in 2025?
Yeah. It's interesting because although we see some of the technical skills evolve with the advancement of technology and different things like that, in 2025, the number one skill that employers are asking for when it comes to soft skills has not changed in probably 2 decades. It is communication skills. That has been the number one. It continues to be the number one. And so communication can be a lot of different things, and we'll probably talk more about that later, but really wanting someone who can communicate effectively with others, bottom line, that's a big one. Some of the other ones, recent surveys are problem solving. So someone who can, tackle a problem or an obstacle and be able to figure out a solution or multiple solutions. Taking initiative, I mentioned that before. So someone who's a self-starter, who's going to not wait around necessarily for someone to tell them what to do, but to find ways they can help out, find things that they could do that are going to be helpful to the company. Adaptability is really important, and I think we see more and more of that now maybe than we did 20 years ago because of the rapidly changing work environment and how our workplaces look so different now than they did then. So really looking at how can somebody pivot when they need to pivot? How open are you to learning new things? That's really important. Someone who's a team player. So the teamwork is a big piece. And then here's one that's kind of a new one. I know we've all heard this before, but a growth mindset. And Adam, you're smiling over there. I know you know what a growth mindset is, but really what it is it's about having a positive attitude about sort of failing forward. So things are going to be hard sometimes, and you're going to encounter obstacles, and you're going to have challenges sometimes that are difficult to overcome. And what a growth mindset is it's that tenacity, it's that persistence, it's that grit that is going to kind of help you overcome those things and not feel as though you're going to give up. Learn from failures. So that's a big one. That's a biggie that keeps coming up maybe more recently that wasn't as much in the past. So I would say those are the big ones that I would list as top. Do you have any others that you can think of that you hear from employers that I didn't mention?
My big thing, and it's funny, I was just talking to a local employer who was looking for an office person just a couple days ago, and he said, I want somebody who's mature and not talking about age. He said age doesn't matter. I want somebody who can problem solve, and I want somebody who doesn't cause drama. And I'm like, that's basically the list you just gave me, because I was like, what's your ideal candidate? Because I have students that come to me all the time and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. I want to make sure it's a good fit.
Yeah.
So coming out of, you mentioned changing work environment, you mentioned office, coming out of the post-COVID world, we've gone to a lot of online, we've gone to a lot of hybrid. How have expectations changed for any of these soft skills coming into this new work life where we may not see people as much as we used to?
Right, right. Well, I think it's back to what I mentioned before about sort of being able to work independently without a lot of oversight. I think that's a skill that when you know you're going to have remote workers as an employer, that's going to be more important to you because you're not right there on site to be able to, to work directly with that person on various tasks all of the time. Now, with technology advancing to where it is, it's easy to send somebody a instant message or jump on a Teams call or jump on a Zoom call or whatever you need to do. But there is that sort of element of you're kind of on your own, working when you're working remotely, connected to your team in a very different way. So there's a different expectation and just a little bit of a different sort of skill set that you need to do that. So, and with that too, technology isn't necessarily, being adept with utilizing different technological platforms is not necessarily considered a soft skill. But certainly that is a skill set that you're going to need to have working in more of a remote environment or having hybrid work. You're just going to have have that. When you don't have an IT person on site to help you fix a problem right there on site, you're going to have to kind of learn how to work through those things, leverage different platforms and those kinds of things. So I would say, and then communication, we mentioned that before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but communicating is so key when you're working remotely. You need that communication. You need it to have a regular cadence. You need it to be very clear and regular. So I would say that those are probably the top ones I would mention.
One other one I heard in there was self-starter.
Absolutely. Yes.
So let's pick one or two, something like communication or adaptability. How do these play out in real workplace scenarios?
Great. I think we'll use communication since that is the number one requested essential skill by employers. It's very different. Even though it's still a skill that employers want, it's going to look different now than it looked in the 90s or the early 2000s or even 10 years ago, right? The way we communicate with each other is very different. The way Gen Z communicates with each other is very different than the way, baby boomers are used to communicating with each other. So that's an interesting one. I think talking about like how we do communicate with each other in the workplace is really important. And then you think about the different pieces of communication. I think professionalism in your communication is very important. I also think that having some, being able to articulate what it is you want to say in a way that other people understand is very important. So one example of that, if you work in a technical field, so my best example is IT. Let's say you're an IT person and you go into an IT field. Your job is not just to sit behind a computer. I think people who don't understand IT sometimes don't know that, right? Your job is to interact with your customers on a regular basis, and you're going into their workspaces and you're going into their workplaces, and you're doing different things that involve communicating with those customers on a regular basis. So number one, being able to sort of translate technical information to what a layperson is going to understand who doesn't know, and using language that they are going to be able to comprehend as you're talking through some of the technical issues that you might be dealing with is really, really important, right? So that's a skill that a really good IT person is going to have, is to be able to do that. So we talk about that a lot in those more technical career fields. So that's a big one. And then, communicating using a variety of different technological platforms. It's funny because even here at the college, there are some people who are very reluctant to use our chat feature, our Teams chat feature. We're a Microsoft platform college, and so we use Teams here. And some people really just don't want to use that, but it's becoming more and more the norm, so that if I need to get Adam really quick on a question I have for him, I am probably more likely now to shoot him a Teams message than I am to pick up the phone and call him. That is more likely going to be the way. So when you're working in an office environment like that, being willing and open to using some different platforms to communicate is really, really important. And then learning those and learning how to use those in a useful way. So, and communicating and on different platforms, being able to still have an in-person conversation with somebody or to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody is also important. Those are not skill sets that are gone forever. We don't just use text messages and messaging in the workplace. We still are required to have conversations with each other. And I think that's important to help, especially younger generations know is learning how to have those in-person conversations with people that are professional and learn how to build those relationships like that. So anything else you guys would add?
We've done a great job of listing the skills,
Yeah.
or at least detailing it, and some of the important ones. Done a great job of listing how some of these skills are utilized in the workplace. Okay, now I'm looking to get a job. How can I demonstrate some of these skills either on my resume or during the interview process?
Yeah. I like to use the word transferable skills, right? So people develop these kinds of essential skills that we've been talking about. They develop them all throughout their experiences as a student, as an employee at, even like a fast food restaurant, or maybe it's your first job. You're constantly developing these skills, whether you really are thinking about them as those specific skills or not, you are. So if you get a job at a fast food restaurant and you have the opportunity to interact with customers, a front-facing role, then you are developing communication skills. And so when you put that job experience in your resume, rather than saying, well, I ran the cash register at such and such a place, or I took orders, you can reframe that to say, I communicated effectively and efficiently with customers on a regular basis. So that's one example, right? We're really highlighting that communication piece, which we know is important to employers, rather than the I took orders piece. Because if you go from, working at a fast food place, which may have been your first job or may have been a job you've had for several years, to now I'm wanting to transition into a office management type of role, then you're going to want to highlight those transferable skills that can transfer from what you did in fast food to what you're hoping to do in your office management role, if that makes sense. Now, the interview is a perfect place to be able to showcase your communication skills, but it's also a really nerve-wracking experience for most people. I don't know very many people who would walk into an interview cool as a cucumber. Most of us are a little bit nervous going in. So it's really important to practice, and practice some more. Communicating your thoughts, your ideas, examples of the strengths that you have and how you've applied those examples of experiences you've had that that employer is going to value. So if we go back to communication, thinking about the experiences you've had with communication, writing reports, sending emails, interacting with customers, all of those kinds of things, and then practicing how to articulate that in an interview. And then that will be the employer's kind of, test run of you to see how you really do communicate. So it is very, very important.
Tonya, you talked a lot about developing those skills with experience. Are these soft skills teachable?
Yes, they are teachable. I do believe they are teachable. We can all learn them. However, we cannot rely on just knowing how to do something. I think especially with soft skills, just like any other skill, we have to practice, right? So you might learn, okay, this is the best way to structure a professional email that you're going to send out to several people within your organization. But until you have the opportunity to practice that, it's very difficult to kind of to hone that skill or to further develop that skill, if that makes sense. So, and we rely, and that's so interesting because we are relying more and more on AI, right, to craft emails for us and draft things. So that may be a skill set that people don't necessarily feel like they have to utilize anymore. But you really do need to know because unfortunately, we're not in a place yet where we can 100% rely on AI. You still need to go in and you need to likely tweak some of the information and things like that. I mean, I can give my own personal example of how I used to be terrified to speak in front of groups of people. So even in a classroom, in a learning environment, I would want to ask a question and would not raise my hand simply because I didn't want to ask it in front of the class. So I was terrified. And now I speak to people on a regular basis. And I put that down to that I did learn. I took some communication and public speaking classes. I learned the fundamentals of speaking publicly and speaking to people, but that didn't help me until I practiced. I mean, it did. I had the knowledge, but I had to apply the knowledge before I was really able to start excelling in that area. And now I don't have any fear around it at all, but it really took exposure, practice, and really working on it and being intentional about that. So yes, it is teachable, but it does require practice.
And and I think one thing when I first started here, if you guys are familiar with the bring your A game to work, one of those was attitude. And I always told students, if I came in here and I had a bad attitude, you're not going to do that. So having somebody model these things for you while teaching, I think is very important as well.
Absolutely. Very, very important.
So as our listeners know from previous episodes, LCCC, especially outreach, does a lot of technical training. How do we help people learn these soft skills, develop these essential skills as part of this technical training?
Yeah, it's important. It's integrated into all of our training programs. We have a unit within outreach and workforce development that is very specifically focused on essential skills. So leadership development, teamwork, communication skills, crucial conversations, project management, all of those kinds of skills that would fall under that essential skills, soft skills umbrella. And so what we often do for some of our programs is we invite those instructors from that side of the house to come into our classrooms and help our students, number one, understand the importance of that soft skill development, but number two, really teach them some of the fundamentals of how to implement, how to develop, and then how to implement those skills in the workplace. And so we work really hard. And then as the students are just learning, they are absolutely learning how to apply those skills every day within their training environment as well. And like I mentioned before, with the interaction with employers and industry, that just kind of drives home the importance of that. I'd be interested in hearing from you, Adam, on how you guys integrate the soft skill development in with adult education.
I was going to say one of the things, and just like I was talking about before, we do go over those skills. One of the big ones for me is attendance, whether it's somebody who's late or doesn't show up to class, just talking to them about, hey, this is going to impact what you're learning, what you're getting, that kind of thing. And generally that helps to have students, be on time, come to class, that kind of thing. So I feel like it's weaved throughout everything that we do.
Yeah, just being mindful of those teachable moments.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
So how can employers help build these skills in their workforce, especially in high turnover or frontline positions?
We have some employer partners who are doing some really, really creative things, having sort of, some on-site training that is very specifically focused on developing these workplace skills, essential skills, soft skills for sure. that's part of what we're here for in outreach and workforce development. In Southeast Wyoming, any employer can come to us and say, listen, I need some support developing team building, teamwork skills within my organization. Is there any way you can help us? And we would say, absolutely. We can develop a customized training for you where we come to you or you come to us on campus and we do a workshop specifically focused on what your needs around teamwork within your organization. We do that all the time. Another one that people ask for a lot is leadership development types of training. So taking all of their supervisors, we just did one recently for the county, all of the county employees who have supervisory responsibilities, met us out at Archer, and we gave them 2 half-day workshops on supervision and leadership fundamentals. And so those kind of things, employers don't necessarily have to worry about implementing those on their own. When they have us as a resource, we can certainly support that development in sort of a continuing education type of format. So.
All right, so I'm going to bring us down to a last question here. We've listed quite a few skills. We've listed how we can develop them. If you had to narrow it down to just one essential skill, one soft skill, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. Just one. I'm going to deviate here, and I am going to say the growth mindset skill that I talked about before, which is that grit, that tenacity, that persistence, that willingness to sort of pivot when you need to. I know that kind of brings in adaptability a little bit. There's a little bit of overlap there, but I think having a growth mindset going into any job in 2025 is important. And here's why. Our workforce is changing so rapidly right now with the advancement of technology, with different creative ways that employers are looking to sort of, make their work and their operations more efficient. Employees need to be going in with the attitude of, I am going to be able to do challenging things. And sometimes I might not always succeed, and sometimes I might need help, but I'm going to persist through that. I'm going to grow, I'm going to develop and become better. So having that kind of attitude, it shows back to your statement, Adam, of bringing your A game, I think is so, so important right now. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Well, that wraps up this episode of Beyond the Classroom. We hope this conversation gave you a clearer view of how soft skills like communication, adaptability, and emotional intelligence can be the game changer in your next job or in building a stronger team. If you're ready to grow your skill set, connect with real training, or explore short-term options that make a difference, check out LCCC's outreach and workforce development programs at lccc.wy.edu.
Don't forget to listen to all of our episodes of Beyond the Classroom on YouTube, Spotify, CastBox, and Amazon Music. And don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who's ready to level up. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, your future is built beyond the classroom.
I want tomorrow. I want tomorrow. I want tomorrow. I want tomorrow today.